Welcome villagers, to the village hidden in the stories. I am your guide, KAGE, the creator of all the what-ifs you see on this channel, with your suggestions of course. I hope you like the video we have today. Please comment video ideas, and subscribe if you're new. Today we have part 6 of You Know What by this point. Honestly, if I didn't know better, I'd say y'all would never let me out this to rest, but I've been convinced to do the last 2 movies in the like. Both will be in one part of their own, so they will probably be one of my longest movies of all time, at least 3 hours for each. But it probably won't be until maybe a month later, maybe 2, so I wouldn't expect it to soon because I got other stuff planned. And if you can support me, please do so on my Patreon, where you can subscribe for $5 to get early updates, text what if transcripts, thumbnails, other arts, and gaming videos. The link will be in the description, so if you can, please help out. So without further ado, let's get into this what if. Part 6, Dark Isolation. The small farmhouse was eerily silent, save for the flickering hum of an old television set propped up on a dusty wooden table. The screen bathed the dimly lit room in a cold, bluish glow, illuminating the tense faces of Naruto and Leo. They sat on the worn-out couch, the cushions stiff from years of neglect. The air smelled of dry hay and old wood, a stark contrast to the storm brewing outside. Crickets chirped faintly in the distance, but their rhythm was drowned out by the booming voice coming from the screen. A towering, ancient Cybertronian loomed over a battlefield of smoldering wreckage, his jagged metal plating shifting ominously with each word he spoke. His burning optics glowed like embers, staring through the screen with terrifying intensity. The fallen humans of Earth, his deep, guttural voice echoed, vibrating through the farmhouse walls. Your leaders will not tell you the truth. But I will. Naruto's fingers curled into fists. We are everywhere. Your armies, your weapons, your defenses mean nothing. With a single command, I can reduce your cities to dust. Your nations will crumble before you even grasp what has happened. Leo swallowed hard. Oh, that's not good. The fallen's voice dropped to a near growl. But we are not without mercy. We desire only one thing, the human called Naruto Reconnecting. Leo turned his head so fast Naruto was surprised it didn't snap off. Dude, they just full-named you. The broadcast continued. Surrender him to us, and no harm will come to your world. Resist, and you will know suffering beyond imagination. The screen flickered before cutting to a live news feed. A shaken reporter sat at a desk, her usually polished demeanor now replaced with barely concealed fear. That message was simultaneously broadcasted across every major news network, radio station, and even secured government channels worldwide. Officials have confirmed that this is not a hoax, this footage is real. She hesitated, glancing at the papers in front of her before looking back at the camera. As of this moment, Naruto Reconnecting is officially wanted by all world governments. Any civilian with information on his whereabouts is urged to report immediately. A heavy silence settled over the farmhouse. Naruto exhaled slowly, his gaze fixed on the screen, but his mind raced. There was no going back now. Leo let out a nervous chuckle, still staring at the screen in disbelief. So, can we talk about me leaving? Because technically, I was kidnapped. Naruto exhaled sharply, more annoyed than anything, before stepping outside the barn. The cool night air did little to settle his frustration. His chakra was completely gone, for now. He couldn't even hear Kurama, but he knew the fox was working to restore his strength. That didn't change the fact that, at the moment, he felt powerless. After Bumblebee, Skids, and Mudflap had pulled him from the wreckage of the fight, they'd taken him here, a small, abandoned farmland, far from prying eyes. A temporary refuge. But with everything that had just happened, it was starting to feel more like a prison. Leo followed, hesitating at the doorway. Hey, are you even listening, Naruto? I barely know you, man. I can leave, right? Naruto didn't answer right away. He stood there, staring at the open field stretching beyond the barn, hands clenched at his sides. He wanted to tell Leo that he could go, that he wasn't forcing him to stay, but that would be a lie. Finally, he turned, his gaze sharp. You saw the message. Leo. Every government on the planet wants me turned in. You really think you can just walk away from this? His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. They know your face now. You were with me when all this started. You think they won't come looking for you too? Leo swallowed hard, shifting uncomfortably. I mean, yeah, but I'm not the one they want. You are. Naruto scoffed, shaking his head. Doesn't matter. The second you step back into the real world, they'll grab you. Maybe they'll use you to get to me, maybe they'll just throw you in some cell so you can't talk. Either way, you're not just some bystander anymore. Leo's face paled, his usual nervous energy suddenly drained. So what, I'm stuck here. Naruto looked at him, his expression unreadable, for now. Naruto turned away again, exhaling quietly. He wasn't sure if he sounded too harsh, but right now, it didn't matter. Too much was happening all at once, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt completely out of his control. Naruto kept his stride steady, his focus locked ahead as he approached the open clearing where the three Autobots and Michaela were gathered. The cool night air did little to settle the storm raging in his mind, but he pushed it aside as best he could. Michaela glanced up at him as he approached, her expression softening. She had seen that look on his face before, guilt, frustration, and the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like an avalanche. You know this wasn't your fault, right? She said, watching him carefully. Naruto let out a slow breath, crossing his arms. Didn't feel that way when I was watching Optimus fall, he muttered, his jaw tightening. If I had been stronger, faster. If my chakra wasn't, Michaela reached into her pocket and pulled out the gloves he had made for her, holding them out. Then take these, she said. They were your creation. You made them so I could help. Now maybe they can help you. Naruto stared at the gloves for a moment before shaking his head. Keep them, he said firmly. I'm still stronger than a normal person. Even like this. You need them more than I do. Michaela frowned. Naruto, you can still use some jutsu, he reminded her. That means you'll have my back. She exhaled, hesitating before nodding. Fine, she said, tucking the gloves back into her pocket. But don't start carrying all of this alone, okay? Naruto didn't answer right away. He just glanced up at the Autobots, their massive forms outlined against the night sky, and then back at her. I don't think I have a choice, he admitted. Michaela stepped in front of Naruto, her stance firm, eyes locked onto his with unwavering determination. The sudden movement caught him off guard, but he didn't step back. I'm serious, Naruto. You're not carrying this weight alone. Her voice was steady, but there was something deeper beneath it, something raw. Naruto's lips parted slightly, but she didn't give him a chance to speak. When you first left for college, I made you promise me something stupid, to try and stay safe. She let out a dry laugh, shaking her head, but I get it now. With who you are, with what you can do, that was never really possible, was it? Naruto's gaze softened as he watched her. He had always known Michaela was strong, but right now, standing there with fire in her eyes, she looked unshakable. So now, I need you to make me a different promise, she said, taking a step closer. Naruto swallowed. His throat dry. He wasn't sure if it was the way she was looking at him or the way her words carried so much weight, but for a moment, he could only stare into her eyes, letting himself get lost in them. "What promise?" he finally asked, his voice quieter than before. "That no matter how bad things get, no matter what happens next, you won't shut me out." Michaela's voice was firm, but there was an edge of vulnerability to it. "I know you, Naruto, when things get hard, you try to take it all on yourself, and I'm not letting you do that this time." Naruto exhaled through his nose, running a hand through his hair as he processed her words. He wanted to argue, to tell her that he didn't have a choice, that the burden was his alone to bear. But looking at her, seeing the unwavering determination in her expression, he knew it would be pointless. Finally, he gave a small nod. "All right," he said. "I promise." Michaela studied him for a moment longer before nodding back, satisfied. "Good," she said. "Because I'm not going anywhere." Michaela held his gaze for a moment longer before taking a slow step closer, her fingers brushing against his hand. Naruto didn't move away. Instead, he let himself take her in, the warmth of her presence, the fire in her eyes that never wavered, the way she always managed to ground him no matter how chaotic things got. Then, before he could think twice about it, she leaned in. The world around them seemed to fade as their lips met. It wasn't rushed or desperate, just a moment of quiet understanding, of all the unspoken words they hadn't been able to say. Naruto's hands instinctively found her waist, pulling her just a little closer, like he was afraid to let go. And then, "Whoa, are we seriously doing this right now?" Leo's voice shattered the moment like a brick through glass. Naruto and Michaela instantly broke apart, turning toward the interruption. Leo stood a few feet away, arms crossed, looking half amused and half exasperated. Behind him, Skids and Mudflap exchanged glances before one of them let out a low whistle. Michaela groaned, rubbing her temples. Naruto, on the other hand, shot Leo a flat look. "Do you ever know when to shut up?" Leo held up his hands. "Hey, I'm just saying, we're literally fugitives, the whole world is hunting us down, and you two decide now is the time to make out?" "Leo," Michaela warned. Leo took a step back, right, shutting up now. Naruto sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Let's just focus on figuring out what the hell we do next." Michaela smirked slightly, nudging him with her elbow. "We'll finish that, later." Naruto's lips twitched, looking forward to it. Naruto turned to Bumblebee, his mind immediately trying to find the right words, something to say sorry for what had happened to Optimus. But before he could speak, Bumblebee's radio buzzed to life, a series of clips filling the silence. "It's not your fault," one of them said. Naruto felt a small sense of relief at the reassurance. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle lightly at that, knowing Bumblebee's usual happy-go-lucky attitude was still there. With that, he turned to Skids and Mudflap, who had been silently watching him. They were clearly waiting for the next move, just as he was. His mind shifted back to the immediate problem. He couldn't rush in with his usual reckless style, not with the poison still running through his body. He was weaker than usual, his chakra not responding the way it should. Storming any Decepticon base wasn't an option. They needed another way. His best lead was the strange symbols in his head, the ones Megatron had mentioned. They supposedly led to Energon, the life force of the Cybertronians. But that was all he knew. There had to be more, a hidden clue, something that could give them the upper hand. His mind raced as he tried to put the pieces together. There had to be a way to stop the Decepticons without relying on his usual blast first, ask questions later approach. The more he thought about it, the more it became clear, this time, it wouldn't be enough to fight on pure instinct. They needed a plan. Naruto exhaled through his nose, his gaze moving between the others as he finally spoke. "We need to find someone who can decipher the symbols," he said firmly. Megatron knew what they were. He said they'd lead to Energon, but there has to be more to it than that. If we can figure out what they mean before the Decepticons do, we might have a way to stop them without walking into another fight completely blind. He turned to Skids and Mudflap. "You two are Cybertronians, you have to know something." The twins exchanged a glance before Mudflap shook his head. "Man, that stuff is old school. Like, way older than us." Skids nodded. "Yeah, reading that is like trying to decipher caveman drawings with a blindfold on." "Not happening." Naruto sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. The poison in his system was still dulling his senses, making it harder to focus, but he pushed through. There had to be another way. A few seconds of silence passed before Leo suddenly raised a hand. "Okay, hold up, before I say anything, I just want to reiterate that I was kidnapped." Naruto shot him a dry look. Leo ignored it and kept going. "I mean, let's be real. Me wanting to leave is totally justifiable, right? This isn't exactly what I signed up for." Skid snorted. "You think so, 'cause you a pussy." Mudflap cackled. "For real bro, biggest scaredy cat I ever seen." Leo rolled his eyes. "Laugh it up, but I'm the only one here who actually knows a guy who might be able to read those symbols." Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. "Who?" Leo hesitated, then exhaled. "His name is Robo Warrior." Leo didn't know the man's real name, but he had an address. With no other options, they drove to the location where they'd meet Leo's rival. From what the group could see, it was just a simple chop shop. Stepping into the cool morning air, Naruto made sure to keep most of his features covered, along with Leo and Michaela. Leo turned to Naruto, his expression serious, the first time the blonde had seen him like that. "Okay, I'll go inside, talk to him, and let you guys know if it's a go or no go." "Got it?" Naruto shook his head. "We're going in too, just point him out when you find him. When it's time for him to help us, we'll step in." "Of course," Leo replied sarcastically. "Can't let me have one moment." They moved on, the stench of raw meat filling their noses and the cold air freezing their fingertips. Naruto and Michaela kept their distance from Leo but stayed close enough to hear him. Leo wandered the shop, clearly searching for someone. It didn't take long, likely because the place was understaffed, before Leo approached a man at the front. Naruto immediately recognized him. Agent Simmons. Or rather, Chop Shop Simmons now. Was he really Robo Warrior? Leo approached the counter, separating him from Simmons, who was standing near slabs of fresh meat. Leo hesitated, then finally spoke. "Hey, you know the name Robo Warrior?" To anyone else, it would have sounded crazy, but Simmons' eyes flickered with recognition before he dismissed Leo with a glance. When Simmons tried to walk off, Leo followed him. "Come on, man, you've heard of him." "Nope," Simmons quickly replied. "So you've never heard of the real effing deal.com? Simmons scoffed. "You mean that amateur blog with Game Boy level security?" Leo shook his head, stopping in his tracks. "Yep, it's you, Robo Warrior." That was when Naruto and Michaela stepped up, falling in line next to Leo, right in front of Robo Warrior. "Hey Simmons, long time no see," Naruto said with a smirk. He hadn't expected to see the former agent here, but he knew this would be fun. Simmons glanced from Michaela to Naruto, his face twisting with annoyance with every second. He stabbed his knife into a wooden board before trying to walk away again. "That's it, everyone out!" he shouted, irritation seeping into his voice. He stopped in front of an old woman, guiding her out, then moved on to the other customers until they all began to leave. Leo turned to Naruto, still confused, trying to piece together the situation. "Wait, you know this guy?" Naruto nodded quickly, a smirk spreading across his face as memories with Simmons flashed in his mind, mostly annoying ones. "Yep. We were, I wouldn't say friends, more like comrades in arms after we got past the fact that he tried to kill one of my friends and arrest me." Simmons turned at that, his expression twisting into anger. Within seconds, he was in front of Naruto, his frustration almost palpable. If they weren't in a public place, Naruto was sure Simmons would have growled. "Comrades," Simmons hissed, his tone shifting from annoyance to pure anger. "You were the reason for the shutdown of Sector 7, the reason I'm not an agent anymore. There are no comrades here." With that, Simmons turned and walked away, his mind clearly racing. It was almost as if he was sweating pure rage. No secret access. No job, I had to become a butcher. He yanked the knife from the wooden board, splinters flying as the blade came free in one swift motion. "And it's all because of you," Simmons continued, pointing the knife at Naruto, its metal gleaming under the shop's dim lighting. "The case that shut it all down." Naruto crossed his arms, his smirk not only lingering but growing a fraction wider. "I'll admit that was my fault, but I didn't mean for any of that to happen. I was a kid, still am." "You're a kid who's friends with aliens and has supernatural abilities," Simmons shot back, lowering his arm but keeping the knife in hand. Naruto exhaled, already piecing together how the man saw him. Maybe this wasn't going to be as fun as he'd thought. Simmons wasn't wrong. Naruto had, unintentionally, upended his life. He had no right to ask for the man's help, but if Leo thought they needed him, then there wasn't much choice. As he stepped forward, the stench of fresh meat thickened, clinging to the air. His footsteps tapped out a quick, steady rhythm against the tiled floor, and in an instant, he was standing in front of Simmons. Not as fast as he could be, but still faster than most. Simmons didn't flinch. If anything, he looked unimpressed. "Look, we need your help." "That's the only reason we're here," Naruto said, his tone firm but not unkind. "I know I basically wrecked your life. And I'm sorry. But we had to keep Earth safe. And this?" He gestured vaguely around them. "This is the same damn situation." Simmons' expression didn't waver, but the air between them thickened with tension. Neither moved. Neither blinked. It was as if they were staring straight into each other's souls. The silence stretched, long enough to make everyone else shift uncomfortably. Finally, Simmons broke it with a scoff, shuffling forward and giving Naruto a light shove. "You're a wanted fugitive." "Not my problem, not my forte," Simmons said, smirking with mock amusement. "I don't even want to know what you need my help for, because if you tell me, I'll have more problems than I already do. My job was great, perfect, even, before you took it from me." That was it. Naruto had had enough of Simmons playing the victim, acting like his problems were the worst in the world. Oh yeah, because keeping a giant killer robot frozen under a dam and harassing innocent people was such a great plan, totally keeping Earth safe, huh? Naruto stepped forward, his voice sharp with frustration. "I get that you lost your job, but everyone on this planet has lost something. And I'm still fighting so others don't. My college, my one chance at normalcy, was ripped away from me. My chakra is gone, one of my best friends can't even reach me. Optimus is dead, and Cybertronian glyphs are running through my head like a damn movie reel." His fists clenched at his sides. "So yeah, you think you've got it bad? Try living my life, hell, try living one of my past lives." The room fell silent again, Naruto's words hanging heavy in the air, pressing down on Simmons more than anyone else. For a few tense seconds, the two just stared at each other. But, like before, the former agent was the one to break the silence. "You said you're seeing glyphs?" Naruto gave a quick nod, and for the first time, recognition flickered across Simmons' face. Without another word, the man turned and started walking away, motioning for them to follow. "Wait, where are you going?" Leo asked, still trying to process everything. Simmons didn't stop. "Meat locker." "Now." Naruto and the others followed Simmons into the meat locker, the temperature plummeting the moment they stepped inside. The cold bit at their skin, far harsher than in the main part of the store. The stench of raw meat hung thick in the air, heavy and almost unbearable, but Simmons seemed completely unfazed, moving through the space like he belonged there. As they reached the center of the locker, Simmons crouched down, brushing aside a thin layer of frost and snow to reveal a hatch embedded in the floor. It had been hidden well, blending seamlessly into the icy surroundings. He turned to them, his expression suddenly devoid of the usual sarcasm, serious. Almost grave. "This is top secret, no one who works here knows about it," he said firmly, his voice leaving no room for argument. Then, after a brief pause, he added, "And do not tell my mother." Michaela blinked, caught off guard. "You live with your mother?" she asked, barely able to hide her amusement. Simmons shot her a look. "She lives with me. There's a difference." With that, he pulled open the hatch, revealing a dark passage beneath. Without hesitation, he started descending, gesturing for them to follow. When they descended, they were met with the sweet relief of fresh air, free from the stench of raw meat, only to find themselves in a cluttered, dimly lit room. The space was packed with scattered papers. Notes pinned haphazardly to the walls, and various objects strewn across tables and shelves. It looked less like a hideout and more like the lair of a conspiracy theorist who never slept. Naruto moved toward Simmons, while Leo and Michaela wandered, drawn in by the strange assortment of relics and research filling the room. Simmons muttered to himself as he rifled through a pile of documents, but his focus snapped to Leo when the younger man reached for a metallic object on a shelf. "Don't touch that, it's still radioactive," Simmons barked, slapping Leo's hand away from what was unmistakably a mini Decepticon head. Leo blinked, glancing between Simmons and the severed machine before reluctantly letting his hand drop. Unbothered, Simmons resumed his search, still mumbling under his breath. Finally, he retrieved a worn-out file, flipping it open with dramatic flair as he turned to Naruto. "Okay, cube brain," he smirked, the old agent sarcasm slipping back into place. The file made a dry, crinkling sound as he spread it wide. "Do any of these symbols look like the ones in your head?" Naruto barely needed a glance. His eyes locked onto the pages, instantly recognizing the intricate Cybertronian glyphs. They matched, perfectly. The same markings that had been haunting his mind were printed right here in front of him, every detail crisp and undeniable. But one image made him pause. A photograph of a tomb. A Cybertronian-marked tomb. Simmons didn't give him time to dwell. Handing the file off to Naruto, he grabbed more documents and moved toward another section of the hideout, already speaking as he climbed a rusted ladder. "Before I got fired," he grunted, reaching for something on a high shelf, "I poached all the intel I could from Sector 7. Over 75 years of alien research, all leading to one inescapable fact." He reached the top, steadying himself before throwing a box down to Leo, who caught it with a dull clap. "The Transformers have been here for a very, very long time." Naruto, Michaela, and Leo watched as Simmons grabbed more files, some stamped with classified in bold red ink. As he climbed back down, he started slamming photos onto a nearby table, each one landing with a sharp thud. China, Egypt, Greece. The images showed ancient ruins, carvings, and artifacts, all containing the same glyphs Naruto had been seeing. The Cybertronian language, hidden in history itself. So tell me, Simmons said, crossing his arms. How do ancient civilizations, across different continents, all end up drawing the same thing? He leaned in, aliens. Naruto picked up one of the pictures, the gears turning in his mind. It was a clear revelation. Cybertronians were here long before he first discovered them, hiding in plain sight and in history. Check this out, Simmons said, snapping everyone's attention back to him. He tapped another file on the table before flipping it open. Bold letters marked the cover, Project Black Knife. Spreading the pages out, he revealed old, grainy photographs of vintage vehicles, all stamped with the same red classified label. Robots in disguise, he muttered, pointing at each one. We tracked down radioactive signals all over the country, but the higher-ups dismissed it. Said the readings were minuscule, that they didn't matter. They called me obsessed. His fist slammed against the table with a sharp bang. But it's clear now, isn't it? Naruto gave a slow nod, his mind already piecing together the implications. He let his thoughts settle before speaking. Megatron said there was another energon source here. Simmons' head snapped toward him. Hirek as in Earth? Yeah, Naruto confirmed. And the symbols I've been seeing, they lead to it. Simmons hesitated for just a second before turning back to him. Did you ask your Autobot friends about it? No. From what I gathered, this energon source, it's before them, it predates all of them. Simmons exhaled sharply, running a hand down his face. If that's the case, we're porked. He glanced to the side, his mind racing. Then, in a split second, he snapped his fingers and turned back to Naruto, unless we can talk to a Decepticon. But I'm not exactly on friendly terms with any. I might be, Michaela cut in. Both Naruto and Leo turned to her, their expressions a mix of confusion and surprise. Naruto slammed a box onto the table, the very same one Michaela had asked him to bring inside. It wasn't exactly heavy, but it wasn't light either. The real issue, the thing wouldn't shut up. Inside, something was cursing up a storm, spitting out every insult imaginable in a tinny, mechanical voice. Without hesitation, Michaela flipped open the box, and out sprang a Min-Icon, transforming midair into an RC truck. The tiny Decepticon lunged at Naruto, only to be caught mid-leap and slammed right back onto the table. Naruto held him down with a blank expression, not even fazed. You captured a Decepticon? Naruto asked, blinking at Michaela, seeming more impressed than anything. You know that just makes you more attractive, right? Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly a walk in the park, Michaela replied, grabbing hold of the thick chain wrapped around the small bot. This little guy, his name's Wheelie. And I'm pretty sure he can help. Wheelie, meanwhile, was too busy gnawing at his restraints to pay attention. He twisted and jerked, trying to break free in any way he could. Before he could make any real progress, Michaela pulled out a torch lighter and flicked it on. The small flame reflected in his single glowing optic. And just like that, he froze. Behave, she said coolly. Naruto smirked at the sudden shift in the bot's demeanor, but Simmons had his own reaction. Wow, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. I've spent most of my life combing the earth for these aliens, and you're just carrying one around like a chihuahua in your purse. Wheelie turned his gaze to Simmons, his optic narrowing. Well, you ain't much to look at yourself, scrotum head, he shot back. Michaela crouched down, holding Wheelie's chain firmly in her grip. Her voice took on a mockingly sweet tone, the kind someone would use when scolding a misbehaving puppy. Ah, come on, buddy. I know I torched your left eye. And I am sorry about that, she cooed, tilting her head slightly. But if you help us out, I won't torch the other one. Sound like a fair deal? Wheelie let out a low mechanical grumble, clearly unhappy, but he wasn't about to test her resolve. Yeah, whatever, he muttered. What do you want? Michaela pointed at the pictures Simmons had spread out across the table. These symbols, can you read them? Wheelie's optic flickered as he studied the images. The sight of them made him pause, his small frame going stiff. Slag, he muttered. That's the language of the primes. Naruto, Michaela, Leo, and Simmons all exchanged looks at that. The primes? Naruto asked. Wheelie nodded. Tapping one of the photos with a metal claw. Yeah, ancient Cybertronian stuff, real old school. Can't read it myself, but they could. Michaela frowned, they? The bots in these pictures, Wheelie clarified. They're Cybertronian, no doubt about it. Naruto leaned in, studying the images even closer. Wait, so these vehicles were Transformers, Wheelie finished. Where the hell did you guys even get these pictures? Simmons smirked, crossing his arms. Classified government files. Pfft, figures, Wheelie scoffed. Anyway, I couldn't read this scrap even if I wanted to, but they could. Who? Michaela pressed. The Seekers, Wheelie answered, his tone carrying a hint of reverence. Cybertronians that came to Earth thousands of years ago, searching for something. Simmons perked up at that, else searching for what? Beats me, Wheelie said with a shrug. But if you're trying to figure out what these symbols mean, they would know. Michaela narrowed her eyes. And you just happen to know where to find one? Wheelie let out a mechanical chuckle, his single optic glowing brighter as he turned toward a nearby map on the wall. With a subtle shift of his optics, a red dot suddenly flickered onto the map, pinpointing a location. Closest one to us, he said, a grin in his voice. Washington. As Wheelie marked the map, a weight settled in Naruto's chest. Washington. Close, too close. Cybertronians had been searching for something on Earth for thousands of years. Now, Megatron wanted it, the Autobots didn't know about it, and the symbols were burned into his head. That wasn't coincidence. And the worst part, it predated the Autobots. His fingers twitched. If his chakra worked, he'd sense threats before they came. Now, he was flying blind, forced to trust a Decepticon's lead. He hated it. Naruto exhaled, rolling his shoulders. Washington, huh? Whatever this was, it was big. And they were already playing catch-up. The ride to Washington wasn't long, the coordinates leading them straight to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Infiltrating the place was easier than expected, aside from Leo panicking and knocking himself out of commission for the rest of the mission. Once inside, they got to work. Michaela handed Naruto the Allspark sliver, along with metal tongs to hold it, avoiding any more Cybertronian knowledge flooding his mind. If only I had this when Optimus was dying. The thought gnawed at him, but there was no time for regrets. The plan was simple: use the shard to wake a seeker. It didn't take long to find their target. Minutes later, they stood before an old black-winged jet, its worn frame exuding an eerie presence. Wheelie transformed, his optic gleaming with admiration. He rolled forward, practically vibrating with excitement. This is it, he said, voice reverent. This guy right here, he's a legend. Then, glancing at Naruto, he smirked. All right, freshman, give him the shard and watch the magic happen. Naruto barely had time to react. The moment he brought the Allspark shard closer, it pulsed, violently jerking from the tongs and shooting straight into the old jet's fuselage like a bolt of lightning. Sparks erupted from the metal as the entire aircraft shuddered. Panels groaned, gears clanked, and dust rained down as if the jet was coming to life after centuries of slumber. But before the transform could even begin, Michaela looked closer, spotting the Decepticon symbol on its belly. "Shit," she muttered before yelling out, "it's a Decepticon." The rest of the group scrambled at the realization. Simmons and Wheelie found his place under a plane, near Leo, who had finally recovered, while Michaela backed up next to Naruto. Then, the transformation began. The jet's wings twisted, folding inward as mechanical parts shifted and rearranged with an ear-splitting whir. Rusted plating snapped apart, revealing intricate machinery beneath, gears spinning wildly as the nose of the jet retracted. Arms extended with a loud clang, massive hands clawing at the ground. A low, guttural growl filled the museum as a towering figure emerged from the wreckage. His optics flickered to life, bright, fiery red. Jagged plating covered his frame like battle-worn armor, and an ancient, almost regal presence radiated from him despite his deteriorated state. With a deep inhale, the Cybertronian exhaled like an engine roaring back to life. His gaze locked onto the humans, particularly Naruto, before his voice, gravelly with age, finally rumbled through the museum. "Ah, after so long, who dares awaken Jetfire?" Jetfire's optics flickered as he scanned his surroundings, his gaze sweeping over the slick floor before taking in the rest of the hangar. He had yet to notice the human standing at his feet. "What sort of hideous mausoleum is this?" he muttered, his voice carrying an ancient weight as he turned slowly, his movements stiff and unsteady. "Answer me, pawns and knaves. Show yourselves or suffer my infinite wrath, you little spinal cord-based organisms." He dragged himself forward, his rusted frame groaning with every step as he searched for the intruders he knew were there. Leo and the others huddled beside Naruto and Michaela, watching as Jetfire stumbled toward the hangar doors, his joints creaking like old, neglected machinery. Despite his size, he didn't seem like a direct threat, at least, not intentionally. "Oof, oh, bugger it. Behold the eternal glory of Jetfire. Prepare for remote systems override," he bellowed, raising his arms dramatically. Naruto chuckled as the old butt shouted at the massive hangar doors, which would clearly need to be opened manually. "I tell you, this guy did not age well," Wheelie muttered. "I command these doors to open," Jetfire roared again. "Fire," I said, "fire." A missile shot out from his arm, faster than anyone expected, but instead of hitting the target, it veered wildly off course, looping through the air before slamming into the floor with a metallic clang. "Oh, bollocks," he grumbled. "Damn these worthless parts." With a grunt, he smashed a hole through the hangar wall and stumbled outside. The group exchanged glances before following him into the grassy museum yard, where old, decommissioned planes rested beneath the midday sun. After a few shaky steps, Jetfire turned back toward them. His optics narrowed. "What do you want?" he snapped. Naruto kept his response simple. Knowing the old butt likely wasn't in the best state of mind. "We just want to talk." Jetfire scoffed, "I have no time to talk, I'm on a mission. I am a mercenary doombringer." "What planet am I on?" "Earth," Naruto answered. Jetfire let out a dry, unimpressed huff. "Terrible name for a planet, might as well call it Dirt, Planet Dirt. Tell me, is that robot civil war still going on? Who's winning?" Naruto exhaled, his expression turning grim. "The Decepticons." Jetfire sighed, spitting out a chunk of metal as if the answer left a bad taste in his mouth. "Well, I changed sides to the Autobots." The group shared stunned looks. Changing sides was an option? Wheelie was the first to speak. Just as Skids, Mudflap, and Bumblebee finally approached. "What do you mean, change sides?" It's a choice, an intensely personal decision, Jetfire grumbled. So much negativity, who wants to live a life filled with hate? You mean, you don't have to work for those miserable freaking Decepticons? If Decepticons had their way, they'd destroy the whole universe, Jetfire said plainly. At that, Wheelie latched onto Michaela, shaking like an overexcited dog before suddenly humping her leg. I'm changing sides, who's your little Autobot? It lasted all of 2 seconds before Naruto grabbed him by the back with one hand and peeled him off Michaela. Yeah, no. We're not doing that. Wheelie struggled in Naruto's grip while Michaela giggled. Anyway, Naruto continued, turning back to Jetfire. You were saying? I told you, my name is Jetfire, the old bot snapped, slamming a fist into the ground. Leo and Simmons stumbled back, but Naruto and Michaela remained unfazed. Whoa, easy there, Simmons yelped. Somebody shit the bed this morning, Wheelie muttered. Jetfire ignored them. I have issues of my own, and it started with my mother. My ancestors have been here for centuries. My father, why, he was the wheel, the first will. Do you know what he transformed into? No, Simmons replied quickly. Nothing, but he did so with honor. Dignity, damn it. With that outburst, some internal mechanism misfired. A parachute shot out of Jetfire's back, catching the wind and yanking him off balance. With a heavy groan, he tumbled onto his back. Oh bollocks, my boosters are fried. Naruto sighed. This was going to be difficult. When Wheelie said legend, he expected someone more put together. Jetfire's short-term memory was garbage, and his temper wasn't much better. But they had no choice, this was the only lead they had. Look, I'm sure we can help each other, Naruto said. You know about the symbols, the language of the primes, right? I don't think he knows anything, Leo muttered. Naruto ignored him, grabbing a piece of scrap metal and stabbing it into the dirt. He carved the Cybertronian symbols that had been burned into his mind, then looked back at Jetfire. These symbols, they come in flashes. Vivid visions of a language I'm told you understand. Megatron wants me because of them. He poisoned me to stop me from fighting back. Once he has my mind, he'll kill me. Best I can tell, the symbols lead to an energon source. He paused, then added, and there's something else. Some Decepticon we fought mentioned a name, the Fallen. Jetfire stiffened. The Fallen, I know him. He left me here to rust. The original Decepticon. He's terrible to work for, it's always apocalypse, chaos, crisis. These transcriptions were part of my mission, the Fallen's search. I remember now, the dagger's tip, and the key. Wait, slow down. What are you talking about? No time to explain, Jetfire barked, suddenly lunging forward. His massive hands grabbed the humans and Autobots, pulling them close as electricity crackled around him. The air buzzed with raw energy, lightning sparking wildly. Hold on everybody, stay still, or you'll die. Naruto barely had time to react before the world around them blurred into pure energy. In one massive blast, everyone disappeared. The scene shifted to an endless desert, hot, windy, and unforgiving beneath the relentless sun. A few seconds later, a surge of energy erupted in the sky, hurling 3 humans and 5 Cybertronians out as if tossing them away like discarded debris. Everyone crashed into the scorching sand, groaning in pain from the impact. Naruto gritted his teeth as the heat stung his skin, the harsh landing only adding to the discomfort. He barely had time to adjust before realizing Michaela had landed nearby, struggling with the same pain. What the hell was that? He muttered. He could tell it was some kind of teleportation, but why did it have to throw them around like ragdolls? He wouldn't have even cared about the pain if he had been able to brace himself for it. With a grunt, Naruto pushed himself up and reached for Michaela, helping her to her feet. His sharp eyes scanned their surroundings, finding the others scattered across the dunes. Jetfire stood off to the side, watching with what could only be described as amusement, making Naruto scowl. "Come on," he gestured to Michaela, who let out a frustrated sigh and muttered something under her breath about old Cybertronians and their complete lack of consideration. Once everyone regrouped, it was clear that no one was happy. Naruto, usually one of the calmer ones, still wore a deep frown. Even that was mild compared to Simmons, who looked about ready to blow a fuse. "That really hurt," the former agent bellowed. "You're just lucky I didn't break anything. People could have died. If I had gotten hurt, you would have heard from my..." "Oh, shut up," Jetfire cut in, waving him off. "I told you, I was opening a space bridge. Fastest way to Egypt." Naruto crossed his arms, irritation creeping into his voice. "You didn't tell us anything, a space bridge to Egypt? Why are we even here? You didn't explain a damn thing." "Don't get snippy with me, boy," Jetfire snapped, though no one seemed particularly fazed by his outburst. "You were duly informed." Naruto let out a slow exhale, forcing himself to stay focused. His mind was still reeling, trying to piece together the situation. Finally, he spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "Just stop for a second, explain why we're here. Give us something to work with." Jetfire let out a huff but didn't argue. Instead, he launched into an explanation. "This planet was visited by our race long ago, our earliest ancestors, a millennium ago. They were on an exploratory mission, harvesting energon, the lifeblood of our kind. Without it, we perish. Oxidize, rust into nothing, like my wretched self. Do you have any idea what it's like to fall apart while still alive?" Simmons rolled his eyes, already losing patience. "Let's not get episodic, okay, old-timer? Beginning, middle, end. Facts, details. Condense, tell it." Naruto silently agreed. Between the sudden teleportation, the cryptic ramblings, and now this long-winded explanation, it was too much. Jetfire grumbled but pressed on. "Somewhere buried in this desert, our ancestors built a machine, a harvester. It extracts energon by destroying suns." "Destroy suns," Simmons repeated, his irritation shifting to disbelief. "You mean blow them up," Leo chimed in. "Yes," Jetfire confirmed. "In the beginning, there were 7 primes, our original leaders. They set out into the universe, seeking distant suns to harvest. But they had one rule: never destroy a planet with life. Until one of them tried to break that rule. His name was the Fallen." A projection flickered to life from Jetfire's palm, displaying images of towering Cybertronians and the fiery destruction of worlds. "He despised the human race. He wanted to exterminate you all by activating that machine. But the only way to do that is with the matrix of leadership. A great battle was fought over it. The Fallen was stronger than his brothers, so they had no choice but to steal the matrix and hide it. In their ultimate sacrifice, they gave their lives to seal it away in a tomb made of their own bodies. A tomb we cannot find. And somewhere, buried in this desert, that deadly machine still remains. The Fallen knows where it is. If he finds the tomb of the primes, your world will be no more." A heavy silence fell over the group. The weight of what they had just learned settled on them like an unbearable heat. "Okay, so how do we stop him?" Michaela finally asked, breaking the silence. "Only a prime can defeat the Fallen," Jetfire answered. Naruto didn't believe that for a second. If he had his chakra, he was confident he could handle this so-called fallen. There were abilities he knew would work against someone like that. But there was no point in arguing with the old bot now. Jetfire seemed to pick up on something. Wait a minute, you've met a prime, haven't you? Naruto blinked, briefly caught off guard. Yeah. Then you must have been a great descendant. Jetfire mused. The blonde shook his head. No, nothing like that. It was because of what I could do. I fought alongside the Autobots during the war. Helped in the battles, though. His expression darkened. My abilities are gone now. Jetfire hummed in thought, a knowing look crossing his metallic features. You mean chakra, don't you? Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly. Yeah, how do you know about that? It's been a long, long time, but humans once had it. They haven't used it in centuries. Jetfire's optics gleamed with curiosity. How is it that you have it? I'm a reincarnation, Naruto answered flatly. Jetfire paused, absorbing that revelation, but then refocused. And this prime you knew, is he alive? Here, on this planet? Naruto's chest tightened. No, he said quietly. He died, protecting me in our last battle. Jetfire sighed. Then it's impossible. Maybe chakra could have stopped the fallen, but you don't have yours. And without a prime, there's no one who can defeat him. Naruto stiffened. No. That's not right. There had to be a way. His chakra, was Kurama still working on fixing this? Was the poison Megatron used really that strong? His mind raced. If the fallen needed the matrix of leadership to activate the harvester, that meant it must have its own power source. Something strong enough to awaken the machine. Something strong enough to power a Cybertronian. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. Something strong enough to reactivate a dead prime. His fists clenched. If his theory was right, the Matrix could bring Optimus back. And if it had that much energy, maybe it could even burn the poison out of his system. Maybe, just maybe, it could give him his chakra back. He turned to Jetfire, his voice steady but urgent. The Matrix, it's an energy source, right? Could it reactivate a Cybertronian? Jetfire stilled, for once looking as if he was taking the question seriously. The seconds dragged on before he finally spoke. It was never designed for that purpose, he admitted, making Naruto's stomach drop. But then, the old bot's optics glowed with something like realization. But, it is an energy like no other. A smirk formed on Naruto's face. That's all I needed to hear. So, he asked, determination burning in his gaze, how do we get to the Matrix before the Decepticons get to me? Jetfire straightened. Follow your mind, your map, your symbols. What you carved in the sand, it's your clue. When dawn alights the dagger's tip, 3 kings will reveal the doorway. Find the doorway, go now. The group left Jetfire behind, keeping his cryptic clue in mind. Dagger's tip. 3 kings. It seemed vague at first, but Naruto knew the old seeker wasn't just spewing nonsense. There was meaning in his words, they just had to figure it out. Moving quickly. They piled into Bumblebee, with Mudflap and Skids trailing not far behind. The desert stretched endlessly around them, heat radiating off the dunes even as the sun dipped lower in the sky. Once they scouted the surrounding area, Naruto made a call for backup. He was a wanted man, sure, but that didn't mean he couldn't get someone else to place the call for him. The guys owed him a few favors anyway. And they needed to get Optimus's body to Egypt, fast. Naruto had no idea how much time they had left. Simmons handled the communication, speaking in code, dropping only the necessary hints. He warned them another battle was coming and that they might have a way to bring Optimus back. That was all they needed to know for now. With that taken care of, the group searched for shelter, somewhere abandoned, a place to rest and regroup. By nightfall, they had settled inside a crumbling old building. A small fire flickered in the center, casting dancing shadows against the walls, providing a sliver of warmth in the cool desert air. The fire flickered, casting shadows along the walls of the abandoned building. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. Safety. A moment to breathe. Naruto sat on the couch, Michaela resting against his chest, her warmth grounding him. For once, the silence between them wasn't heavy, it was comfortable. He felt her shift slightly, tilting her head up to look at him. "You called for backup," she murmured. Naruto blinked, caught off guard by the statement. "Yeah," he said slowly. "You let Simmons handle the message," she continued. "You didn't try to take everything on yourself." Naruto exhaled, leaning his head back against the couch. "Guess I didn't." Michaela studied him for a moment, then smirked slightly. "Huh, looks like you actually meant that promise." He scoffed, shaking his head. "Wow, such faith." "I did have to practically drag it out of you," she teased. Naruto rolled his eyes but didn't argue. Instead, he laced his fingers through hers, squeezing gently. "I meant it," he said. He hesitated, searching for the right words. Michaela waited, patient as ever. Finally, he sighed. "I think I got so used to carrying everything that I didn't realize how heavy it was." She squeezed his hand back, her voice softer now. "That's why you don't have to do it alone." Naruto didn't answer right away. He just glanced at her, at the firelight reflecting in her eyes, at the way she held onto him, not just physically, but truly held onto him. And for the first time in a long time, he let himself believe it. "Yeah," he murmured. "I know." The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows against the walls of the abandoned building. Naruto leaned back, arms wrapped loosely around Michaela as she rested against his chest. For once, there was no tension between them, just the quiet comfort of shared warmth. Then, Michaela spoke. "So, Dagger's Tip and 3 Kings." Naruto huffed out a small laugh. "Wow, you're the one changing the subject now." She smirked, tilting her head slightly. "You do it all the time, figured I'd give it a try." He shook his head in amusement but let her continue. "I've been thinking about what Jetfire said," Michaela murmured. "A dagger's tip and 3 kings," it sounded vague, but what if we're overcomplicating it? Naruto frowned slightly, turning the words over in his mind. "Dagger's tip, something sharp, a weapon?" "Or a point," Michaela said, tapping his chest lightly. "Like something that guides you." Naruto's eyes narrowed in thought. "A dagger's tip is meant to point forward." He trailed off, then suddenly sat up. "Wait. The stars." Michaela nodded. "Yeah. Orion's belt. It's sometimes called the 3 Kings, Naruto blinked. "You're telling me Jetfire gave us a clue about astronomy?" Michaela smirked. "The pyramids of Giza were built to mirror Orion's belt. The Egyptian kings, pharaohs, designed them that way. That means the 3 kings aren't just the pyramids, they're the stars themselves." Naruto let out a breath, shaking his head. "So the pyramids and the stars are connected," his gaze turned thoughtful. "Orion's belt, those stars form a straight line." Michaela nodded again, "and they point due east." Naruto exhaled, realization dawning on him. "Straight to the mountains of Petra." They stared at each other for a moment, the weight of the discovery settling in. That's where the tomb of the primes is, Michaela said. Naruto's lips curled into a small, determined smirk. Then that's exactly where we're going. The journey to the mountains was grueling. The desert stretched endlessly around them, shifting sands swirling in the night breeze as they moved. Bumblebee drove at a steady pace, his engine a low hum against the quiet, while Skids and Mudflap followed closely behind. The vast openness of the desert made every shadow feel like a lurking danger, but there was no turning back now. As the first light of dawn began to break, painting the horizon in hues of gold and crimson, the towering formations of Petra came into view. The jagged cliffs loomed over them, their weathered surfaces whispering tales of ancient civilizations. The path narrowed as they wove between towering rock formations, the air growing cooler in the shade of the mountains. Then, as they rounded a final bend, the sight before them stole their breath. Carved into the very face of the mountain stood a colossal palace, its intricate stonework worn by time but still breathtaking in its grandeur. The entrance alone was massive, tall enough for a Cybertronian to walk through without needing to crouch. Towering columns lined the facade, their ornate carvings depicting scenes long forgotten by history. Despite its age, the structure remained imposing, a silent guardian of whatever lay within. Naruto stepped out of Bumblebee, tilting his head back to take in the sheer scale of it. Well, he muttered, hands on his hips. That's one way to make an entrance. Michaela stepped up beside him, her voice hushed with awe. It's beautiful, but also kind of eerie. Simmons whistled low, you don't see something like this every day. Naruto exhaled, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the place that had been hidden for centuries, the key to bringing Optimus back. Whatever lay beyond those massive doors, it was time to face it. Everyone moved inside, including Bumblebee. Skids, and Mudflap. Skids was the first to break the silence, peering into the dark expanse with wide optics. Spectacular, he muttered, almost in awe. The chamber was vast yet barren, the air thick with dust and time. There were no doors, no passages, just a single hollowed-out space, its walls adorned with faded murals, long-forgotten stories lost to history. Naruto turned in slow circles, scanning every inch. It's here somewhere, he said, more to himself than the others. Yeah, sure, Leo scoffed, crossing his arms. And we're trusting Grandpa Blackbird, who barely knows what planet he's on. In his defense, Simmons interjected, motioning toward the towering entrance. This is the biggest damn doorway I've ever seen in my life. Leo threw up his hands. Great. So let's just ignore the fact that archaeologists have been all over this place for centuries and found, oh, I don't know, nothing. He turned, waving toward the empty chamber. Ever cross your minds that maybe there's nothing here? Simmons' patience snapped. He stepped toward Leo, jabbing a finger at his chest. Real life is heartbreak, kid. Sometimes you get to the end of the rainbow, and the leprechauns went and booby-trapped it. Leo didn't back down. Why am I even listening to you? You live with your mother. Naruto sighed and stepped between them, holding up his hands. Enough. Tearing each other apart isn't gonna solve anything. Leo exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. Solve what? There's nothing left to solve. His voice wavered, the frustration giving way to something heavier, defeat. It's over. We lost. A low, metallic scoff cut through the air. Why are we still listening to this punk-ass? Skids grumbled, crossing his arms as he glared at Naruto. What's he done for us, huh? Dinged my rim? Naruto raised an eyebrow, but before he could answer, Mudflap did it for him, killed Megatron. How about that? Skids snapped his head toward his brother, his irritation shifting. Yeah. Well, he didn't get the job done, did he? 'Cause Megatron's back now. And he's, what, you scared? Mudflap cut in, stepping closer. Skid stiffened. Scared? I'm scared of your ugly face. The tension flared into action. The two Autobots shoved at each other, metal scraping metal. Then, without warning, they went full-on brawl, throwing each other into the walls with enough force to shake the ground. Dust rained down from above as cracks splintered across the ancient stone. Guys! Michaela shouted, but the twins weren't listening. I'm ugly? We're twins, you stupid genius. Mudflap roared before launching himself at Skids. Bring it, then. Their battle escalated, each hit sending echoes through the chamber. Finally, Bumblebee had enough. With a sharp rev of his engine, he grabbed both of them, slammed them together, and hurled them out of the chamber. Thanks, B, Naruto sighed, shaking his head. The momentary chaos faded, but the crushing weight of doubt remained. This had to be the place. It had to be, but then. Why did it feel like Jetfire had been wrong? Or worse, what if they were? Naruto clenched his fists. No. This wasn't over, this is it, he said firmly, turning to face Leo and Simmons. Michaela stood just behind him, watching carefully. Leo let out a sharp laugh, but there was no humor in it. What do you mean, this is it? Crazy old bot barely knew anything, and now the whole world is screwed. I told you guys, I'm not a soldier. I'm not some warrior. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. What if we were never supposed to win? Naruto took a slow step forward, placing a steady hand on Leo's shoulder. He met his friend's eyes with quiet certainty. It's here, he said simply. Leo frowned. How do you know? Naruto closed his eyes. He didn't need proof. He didn't need logic. He could feel it. A pulse of energy rippled through the air as his chakra flared to life, flooding the chamber in an ethereal blue glow. The darkness receded, and then, something deep within the palace stirred. Naruto exhaled sharply as his chakra roared back to life, the familiar surge of energy washing over him like fire in his veins. The fatigue, the sluggishness from the poison, gone. He clenched his fists, feeling power flood his limbs, sharper and stronger than before. His senses expanded, stretching past the walls of the chamber, past the dust and ancient decay. There was something here. It was faint, buried deep, but unmistakable. Michaela took a step closer, watching him carefully. Naruto? His eyes snapped to the walls, scanning the faded carvings. The room wasn't empty, just hidden. A slow grin spread across his face. Bumblebee, he called, turning to the Autobot. B tilted his head, radio clicking as if asking, what now? Naruto pointed to the far wall, the one that felt wrong, as if it were hiding something beneath its stone facade. Blast a hole right there. The room went silent for a beat. Leo's eyes widened. Wait, hold on. Before he could finish, Bumblebee's cannon powered up with a high-pitched whine. Then, boom, the explosion rocked the chamber, dust and debris flying as a massive hole was ripped into the wall. As the smoke cleared, a passageway was revealed, stretching into the darkness beyond. Naruto smirked. Told you it wasn't over. The passage they uncovered led into a vast, hollowed-out chamber, its ceiling stretching impossibly high. Unlike the outer hall, this place felt untouched by time, as if the very air refused to let dust settle, and at the center of it all were the crags. Jagged stone formations jutted from the floor in uneven, towering shapes, but as Naruto stepped closer, he realized they weren't just stone. They were bodies, the skeletons of the primes, massive Cybertronian remains, fused together by age and decay, stood in eternal stillness. Their forms had been long worn down, hollowed by time, but their presence was undeniable. Some leaned against one another, others had collapsed into piles of broken metal and stone, but all of them bore the same intricate carvings, symbols that pulsed faintly with ancient energy, tracing the length of their limbs like forgotten scripts of power. Naruto ran a hand across one of the fallen figures, feeling the engravings beneath his fingertips. The symbols were deep, filled with a resonance that hummed against his chakra. It was like the remnants of a language long lost, telling the story of the sacrifice that had taken place here. These guys. Simmons breathed, stepping up beside him. They gave their lives to protect it. The Matrix. Michaela's voice was quiet, reverent. Naruto's gaze followed hers toward the center of the chamber, where a raised platform stood among the remains. And there, resting atop it, bathed in the faint glow of the dying light filtering through the cracks above, the matrix of leadership. It was smaller than he expected, but no less powerful. The object pulsed with energy, its intricate design forming a shape almost too complex to follow with the eye. Naruto stepped forward, his breath steady as he reached out. The moment his fingers touched the matrix, a surge of energy coursed through him, deeper, older than even his chakra. The weight of history pressed down, memories flickering like whispers in the back of his mind, the sacrifice of the primes. The betrayal. The battle that had led to this very moment, and then, the matrix pulsed, and the chamber seemed to breathe. Naruto's fingers wrapped around the matrix of leadership, and the moment he lifted it from its resting place, a pulse of energy rippled outward. The ancient chamber trembled as if awakening from a long slumber, dust cascading from the high ceiling while the engravings on the skeletons of the primes flickered dimly before fading into silence once more. He exhaled sharply, feeling the weight of the artifact, not just physically, but in the sheer presence it carried. There was something alive about it, like it was waiting for something or someone. But before he could act, the matrix started to deform. The matter that made it was rapidly turning into dust and sand. However, while everyone else seemed even more worried at this, Naruto only shook his head before putting the dust in a special scroll. Michaela stepped forward. Her eyes locked on the scroll. Naruto turned to her and, without hesitation, placed it in her hands. "Take it." Michaela blinked, caught off guard. "Wait, what?" "You and the others need to get this to Optimus," Naruto said, stepping back. "He's our only chance at stopping this." She looked down at the artifact in her grasp, then back at him. "Naruto, what are you talking about? You're coming with us, and the matrix is gone. All that's in this is dust now." He shook his head. "No, I feel it with my chakra. It's not gone. Trust me. When it comes to you bringing back Optimus, it will come back." A short pause came between them, Naruto looking to the exit of the mountain. There was still something he needed to do. "As for me, I can't leave, not yet." His voice was firm, steady. "I need time to fully recharge my chakra. Whatever happened when I got it back, it's not at 100% yet. I can feel it." Michaela's grip on the matrix tightened. "Then we wait." "No," Naruto cut her off gently but firmly. "You can't wait. Every second we waste is another second Megatron and the Fallen get closer to wiping us all out. Optimus needs this, and you're the only one I trust to get it to him." Michaela swallowed hard, her expression conflicted, but she understood. "You better catch up fast," she muttered, shoving the matrix into her jacket and stepping back. Naruto smirked. "You know I never stay down for long." He turned to the others. "Bumblebee, Skids, Mudflap, get them out of here. Get to Optimus, I'll meet you there when I'm ready." Bumblebee chirped in response, his optics flickering with hesitation before he finally nodded. Skids and Mudflap, for once, had nothing snarky to say. Leo and Simmons exchanged glances before Simmons shrugged. "Well, kid, let's hope you really do have a plan, because otherwise, this is the worst idea in history." Naruto exhaled as he watched them turn back toward the entrance. As soon as they were gone, he sat cross-legged on the stone floor, closing his eyes. Now, it was time to go inward. Time to reclaim all of his power. He let out a slow breath. Then sank into his mindscape. The moment Naruto stepped into his mindscape, he knew something was wrong. The sewer-like corridors that usually made up this space were gone. Instead, he stood in an endless void, the air thick with something suffocating. The ground beneath him was cracked and unstable, pulsating like a dying heartbeat. Then he saw it. Kurama. Or at least, what was left of him. The once mighty fox was hunched over, his enormous form wrapped in writhing black veins. The chains that had once held him in the past were different now, living, moving, twisting like parasites burrowing into his flesh. His red fur was dimmed, dark patches spreading like an infection. His eyes, once a fierce crimson, were a sickly green, flickering with something wrong. And he wasn't looking at Naruto. He was staring through him. A slow, painful growl rumbled from his throat. "You shouldn't have come here." Naruto took a cautious step forward, his fists clenching. "Kurama, what the hell happened to you?" The fox let out a ragged breath, his shoulders rising and falling heavily. "The poison." His voice was layered, distorted. "It did not just weaken you. It latched onto me. I fought it. I fought to break it down, to purge it from your system." His green eyes flickered wildly, "But I was not strong enough." Naruto's stomach twisted. His mind raced to make sense of it. Kurama had saved him. He'd worked to pull the poison from his body, to let Naruto's chakra flow again. But in doing so, Naruto's breath hitched. "It corrupted you." Kurama let out a low chuckle, a sound so unfamiliar it sent chills down Naruto's spine. "You do not understand." His ears twitched, his body trembling as if struggling to hold something back. "This poison, it is not simply a sickness. It consumes." The chains tightened around his body, as if trying to hold him in place. Naruto took another step forward, determination burning in his gut. "Then let me help you." Kurama's body snapped. A wave of dark chakra erupted from him, splitting the ground as black tendrils shot outward like spears. Naruto barely had time to react. He twisted to the side, avoiding a tendril that sliced through the space where he had just stood. The sheer force of the attack sent shockwaves through the void. Then Kurama's eyes locked onto him. "You cannot help me." He moved. The air howled as Kurama lashed out, his massive claw tearing through the ground with terrifying speed. Naruto barely managed to dodge, flipping backward just as the earth cracked beneath the impact. He landed in a crouch, sweat beading on his brow. Kurama was faster, stronger, his movements were wild, unpredictable. Naruto barely had time to breathe before Kurama struck again, this time a sweeping claw aimed to crush him. He flickered out of the way, appearing above the fox's head, forming a Rasengan in his palm. He slammed it down. The moment it made contact, something lashed back. Naruto's eyes widened as a pulse of black chakra rejected the Rasengan, sending a violent shockwave through his arm. The force sent him flying, his back slamming into the cracked ground. His entire right side burned. Naruto gasped, his body trembling as an unnatural sensation crawled through his veins. It felt wrong. His chakra felt wrong. He pushed himself up, breathing heavily. His fingers were shaking. His chakra was flickering in unstable bursts. Kurama was watching him, silent, waiting. Naruto gritted his teeth, pushing the pain aside. "Damn it, I don't care what this poison did to you, I'm not leaving you like this." Kurama's ears flicked, "Then fight me." The chains shattered. A monstrous roar tore through the air as Kurama lunged. Naruto barely had time to react before a tidal wave of dark chakra slammed into him, knocking the wind from his lungs. He gritted his teeth, flipping backward to regain control, but the moment his feet touched the ground, Kurama was already upon him. A claw raked across the air, and Naruto ducked, feeling the sheer force slice the wind above him. He retaliated, forming two Raisengans in his palms, hurling them forward. Kurama swallowed them. Naruto barely had time to process it before Kurama's tails whipped out, slamming him into the ground with a force that shook the void. Pain exploded in his ribs. Naruto coughed violently, his vision blurring. His body hurt. Every nerve screamed at him. His chakra felt sluggish, resisting him at every turn. Kurama stood over him, his massive form casting a shadow. "You are fighting something you do not understand." Naruto forced himself up, spitting blood. "Yeah," he wiped his mouth, his breath ragged. "Well, that never stopped me before." His chakra flared, flickering wildly as he forced it into control. Then he rushed forward. He was on Kurama in an instant, weaving between the black tendrils that lashed out at him. He slid under the fox's claw, twisting midair, and slammed a chakra-infused fist into Kurama's jaw. The fox reeled, but Naruto didn't let up. He moved on instinct, his body weaving through attacks, fists striking out with a force that rattled the void itself. Each blow sent a pulse of blue chakra through Kurama's body, igniting the black veins like fire. Kurama roared in pain. The dark energy recoiled, fighting against the purification surging through him. But Naruto didn't stop. He couldn't stop. This was his partner. His friend. And he wasn't losing him to some damned poison. With one final surge, Naruto drove his palm against Kurama's chest, sending a tidal wave of golden chakra erupting outward. The darkness shattered. Kurama's body convulsed, the black veins searing away under the golden light. He let out a final, echoing roar, before collapsing. The void fell silent. Naruto stood there, panting. His body ached, his chakra burned, but he looked up. Kurama was still there. The fox's breathing was heavy, but the corruption was gone. His red eyes had returned, burning with clarity. His body was free of the chains. Naruto swallowed hard. "Kurama?" The fox let out a slow breath, his voice hoarse. "You did it." Naruto let out a breathless laugh, staggering back. "Of course I did." Kurama exhaled, his gaze sharpening. "Then it is time." Naruto blinked. "Time for what?" Kurama stared at him. Something unreadable in his expression. "We are using that form." Naruto's stomach tightened. He knew exactly what Kurama meant. "We need it," he said quietly. "The fallen. Megatron, we're not holding back." Kurama's eyes narrowed. "None of my reincarnations have used it since the first." Naruto inhaled deeply. Then he met Kurama's gaze, unwavering. "Then let's make this the first and last time we ever need to." The golden chakra erupted around him, blinding, overwhelming, absolute. And when Naruto's eyes opened, the battlefield was waiting. The engine roared beneath Michaela's grip as she slammed her foot against the gas pedal. The world outside was a blur of sand and destruction. The heat of the desert rising in shimmering waves. Her knuckles were white against the steering wheel, but she forced herself to stay calm, focused. They didn't have time to panic. Behind her, Simmons was barking orders at Leo, who was, predictably, losing it. "Oh God, oh God, oh God. He's gonna kill us, he's gonna." A deafening explosion rocked the earth beside them, sending a spray of sand and debris against Bumblebee's side. "Would you shut up already?" Simmons snapped, holding onto the seat as Bumblebee swerved. "We get it, we're all gonna die, no need for a damn play-by-play." Leo, completely ignoring him, was practically hyperventilating. "OH, come on, we're being chased by an actual space jet. We're gonna get blown to pieces." Another round of missiles slammed into the ground just behind them, and Michaela gritted her teeth as Bumblebee took a sharp turn, trying to avoid getting vaporized. "BEE, give me something here," she yelled, barely able to keep control as the Autobot dodged on instinct. The Camaro's radio crackled to life, a distorted clip playing through the speakers. "Hang on tight." Then Bumblebee launched into a hard right, taking them off the main path, sending up a cloud of sand to break line of sight. Michaela barely had time to breathe before another round of laser fire tore past them, way too close for comfort. Leo shrieked, "I wanna go home." Simmons let out a long, suffering sigh. Then, without hesitation, he pulled out a small device from his pocket. Leo didn't even see it coming. A second later, Leo's body jerked, his eyes rolling back as he slumped over, completely unconscious. Michaela's mouth fell open. "Did you just taser him?" Simmons shoved the device back into his pocket. "You're welcome." Michaela huffed, eyes darting back to the road. "You couldn't have done that 5 minutes ago?" Had to be sure he wasn't gonna piss himself first. Before she could respond, Bumblebee swerved again, forcing them behind a crumbling rock formation for cover. They weren't out of danger. But they had seconds to think. Michaela's heart was pounding. The matrix of leadership sat heavy in her lap, its metallic form pulsing with an eerie energy. They had one job, get it to Optimus. Her fingers tightened around it. Mudflap suddenly pulled up beside them, kicking up sand as he skidded to a stop. His door swung open, and Simmons immediately turned to Michaela. "All right, listen up, we're splitting up." Michaela's head snapped toward him. "What?" "I'll draw Scarface over there away," Simmons said, already dragging an unconscious Leo toward Mudflap. "You take the Matrix and get to Prime." "That's suicide," Michaela shot back. "You saw what he did back there," Simmons smirked. "Kid, I've been waiting my whole life for a chance to give one of these bastards the finger. Now, go save the damn world." Before she could stop him, he threw Leo into Mudflap's passenger seat and jumped in. The Autobot peeled away, kicking up a storm of dust as Starscream roared overhead. Michaela had no choice. She gritted her teeth, grabbed the wheel, and slammed her foot onto the gas. They were running out of time. Michaela's pulse pounded in her ears as she threw the car door open and stepped onto the sun-scorched sand. The heat was oppressive, waves of it rippling through the air, but she ignored it. Her grip tightened around the matrix of leadership, its weight grounding her, reminding her what was at stake. A small village lay ahead, its buildings worn and weathered from the desert winds. The place should have been silent, should have been empty, but she could see movement. Shadows shifting between walls, metal glinting under the harsh sun. Decepticons. She clenched her jaw. Bumblebee's engine rumbled behind her, and she turned back to face him. The Autobot's headlights flashed once, his posture tense, ready to charge in at the first sign of danger. B, but Michaela shook her head. "No B, stay out here." He let out a series of concerned beeps through his radio, but she didn't waver. "They'll hear you coming a mile away," she explained, taking a steadying breath. "I need to go in alone. On foot." B's radio crackled. Bad idea, bad idea." Michaela smirked, despite the fear gnawing at her gut. "Yeah, well, I've had worse." She reached up, placing a hand against his hood in reassurance. Just keep moving, circle the village, stay in the shadows. If something happens, you'll be my backup." For a long moment, Bumblebee didn't move. Then, reluctantly, he revved his engine before rolling backward, disappearing behind the cover of the dunes. Michaela exhaled sharply. "Okay, it's just me now." She adjusted the strap of her bag, ensuring the matrix was secure, and took off toward the village, moving low, staying close to the walls. The heat was the least of her worries now. Michaela moved carefully through the village, each step light, each breath controlled. The place was eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that made the hairs on her arms stand up. She pressed herself against a crumbling stone wall, peering around the corner of a narrow alleyway. Her heart stuttered. Two figures sat bound to a rusted metal pole in the center of a small courtyard. A man and a woman, their clothes torn, faces bruised, but alive. The man was Ron, the woman, dark, was Judy. Both were barely holding themselves upright, their expression one of quiet determination despite their wounds. Michaela's breath caught in her throat. Naruto's parents. A wave of realization slammed into her. They must have been captured when Naruto was declared a fugitive. That's why they weren't there with Nest. They never had a chance to run. A flicker of movement above them made her instincts scream. No, she turned sharply, just as the shadows above the rooftops shifted. Gleaming red optics came to life, the unmistakable silhouettes of Decepticons rising from their perches like vultures. Michaela's stomach plummeted, an ambush. She forced herself to stay calm, stepping out into the open with her hands up, keeping her expression neutral. "Well," she said, voice even, "this wasn't exactly what I had planned for today." A deep, guttural laugh rumbled from one of the Decepticons. A massive one, bulkier than most, with scarred plating and a jagged Decepticon insignia etched into his chest. His optics gleamed with amusement as he stepped forward. "A human, walking right into our hands. Brave, but foolish." Michaela took a slow breath. "I have something you want." She tilted her body just enough to let them think she was revealing something at her side, her bag where she had hidden the matrix. The Decepticons stilled, optics narrowing. "The matrix of leadership," she said smoothly. "I have it." Michaela kept her hands up, backing away slowly as the Decepticon loomed over her. Its optics scanned her, narrowing suspiciously, no doubt trying to detect any deception. "You really think you can fool me, human?" it growled, stepping closer, metal claws scraping against the ground. Michaela swallowed but held her ground. "I have the matrix. If you want it, you'll have to let them go," she said, keeping her voice steady while subtly shifting her fingers into position. She had only practiced a handful of jutsu with Naruto, but she remembered the basics. Her gloves hummed softly, reacting to the chakra flowing through them as she formed a quick set of hand seals. Tiger, ox, ram. The Decepticon took another step forward, just as the earth beneath its feet cracked and shifted. A controlled tremor rippled through the ground, knocking it off balance. The towering mech let out a surprised snarl, trying to regain footing, but Michaela wasn't done. "Now B," she shouted. Bumblebee roared in from behind, his engine revving before he transformed mid-air, blasters already charged. He fired a rapid volley, striking the off-balance Decepticon and sending it crashing into a crumbling wall. Michaela took a breath, heart pounding, but she knew the fight wasn't over yet. The Decepticon pushed itself up, growling in rage, its armor dented but still intact. It locked its glowing optics on her, this time with pure malice. "You're going to regret that." Michaela flexed her fingers, shifting her stance. "Yeah, come and make me." The Decepticon lunged, and Bumblebee charged forward, the real fight now beginning. Bumblebee clashed with the Decepticon in a flurry of metal and sparks, trading blow after blow. Mikaela kept her distance, ducking behind a crumbling wall as Bee tackled the larger mech, slamming it into the side of a building. Dust and debris exploded into the air, making it hard to see. The Decepticon roared, swinging a massive clawed arm at Bumblebee, who barely managed to dodge in time. The strike shattered a stone pillar, sending fragments flying in every direction. Bee retaliated with a hard uppercut to the Decepticon's midsection, forcing it back, then followed up with a double blaster shot straight to its chest. The Decepticon staggered, its circuit sparking wildly. "You pests!" It snarled, but before it could finish, Bee surged forward, grabbing its arm and twisting. The metal groaned under the pressure before Bee launched himself up, using the Decepticon's own weight against it to send it crashing to the ground. Mikaela saw her moment. She dashed forward, forming another quick set of hand signs: tiger, boar, ox. The chakra-infused gloves pulsed as the ground beneath the Decepticon shifted once more, a sudden burst of force sending it sliding into the rubble. Bumblebee wasted no time, his cannon charged, and with a final powerful blast, the enemy mech crumbled into a heap of smoking wreckage. Silence settled, the only sound being the faint crackling of scorched metal. Mikaela turned, breathing heavily, and immediately locked eyes with Sam's parents. Her heart ached at the fear and desperation in their expressions. "Where is he?" Judy Witwicky asked, stepping forward, eyes searching for any sign of her son. "Where's Naruto?" Mikaela hesitated, guilt twisting in her stomach. He's still fighting. He's alive, but I need to get the Matrix to Optimus. There's no time to explain." Ron Witwicky clenched his fists. "You expect us to just leave?" "Yes," she said firmly, grabbing Judy's hands. "Listen to me, Naruto would want you both safe. You can't stay here." She motioned toward Bumblebee. "Get in, let Bee take you somewhere safe." Judy looked like she wanted to argue. But Ron pulled her back. "Come on, honey," he murmured, his voice strained. Mikaela stepped back as they climbed into Bee, watching as he transformed back into his Camaro form. His engine rumbled in understanding, and without another word, he sped off, leaving Mikaela alone in the dust and ruins. She exhaled, steeling herself. She still had a mission to complete. Mikaela pushed forward through the war-torn streets, her heart pounding in her chest as she neared Optimus Prime's position. The Autobots and military forces were entrenched, their weapons ready, and a perimeter had been set up around the towering figure of Optimus, wounded but still standing strong. As she approached, the soldiers saluted her, and Bumblebee pulled up alongside her. His engine hummed with a comforting familiarity, as if urging her on. Mikaela looked down at the matrix of leadership clutched tightly in her hands, its glow faint but steady. It was time to end this. She took a deep breath, ready to hand the matrix over to Optimus, but before she could take a single step forward, a sudden blast of energy tore through the air, striking her in the chest. "No!" she screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the deafening explosion as the impact sent her flying backward. The matrix flew out of her grasp, and she hit the ground hard, her body crumpling unnaturally as her vision blurred. The world seemed to slow. She could hear faint voices, shouts of concern, but they felt distant, almost as though they were coming from another lifetime. Blood welled up in her mouth, and she gasped for breath, her limbs growing heavier. Then, everything went black. Megatron stood atop a nearby building, his laughter booming through the streets as he lowered his arm from the blast cannon. His optics glowed with cold malice as he surveyed the scene. "Another worm falls." His voice dripped with disdain. But before he could even relish his victory, a wave of anger surged through the air. From behind, a powerful chakra aura flared to life, illuminating the battlefield with a golden blue light that seemed to burn away the very darkness around it. The energy pulse was so intense it shook the ground, sending ripples through the air. Naruto Uzumaki stepped forward, his eyes blazing with fury, his chakra already in its advanced form, the Kyubi chakra mode. His features were filled with rage, his fists clenched, and his heart pounding in his chest as he moved toward Michaela's lifeless form. "Get away from her," he roared, his voice carrying the weight of all the pain and fury he felt in that moment. Megatron narrowed his optics, barely having time to react before Naruto surged forward, his hand slashing through the air with unnatural speed, creating a shockwave that shattered nearby structures. The Decepticon leader staggered back, caught off guard by the sheer force of Naruto's attack. "Impressive," Megatron sneered, his arm transforming into a cannon as he aimed at the advancing human. "But it won't be enough." Naruto didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, he lunged at Megatron, his fists glowing with chakra. Each punch seemed to rip through the air, creating concussive blasts with every strike. The military forces, seeing the opening, opened fire, their bullets and missiles hammering into Megatron from all sides. The Autobots joined in, firing their cannons and blasters as the Decepticon leader staggered under the relentless assault. But despite the barrage, Megatron fought back with a snarl, turning to face his attackers. "Is this really all you have?" he bellowed, his cannon charging for another devastating shot. Naruto, still burning with rage, locked his sights on Megatron, his resolve unshaken. He wasn't going to let this monster hurt anyone else, not today, not again. But then his attention shifted. His eyes fell to Michaela, lying motionless in the rubble. His breath caught in his throat as he dropped to his knees beside her. "No," his voice broke as he gently cradled her head, tears brimming in his eyes despite the raging battle around him. He could feel her pulse, weak, but still there. The sight of her battered form caused a deep ache in his chest, an ache that threatened to consume him entirely. "Please, please don't leave me, Michaela," he whispered, his voice barely audible amidst the chaos. He could feel the pull of despair rising inside of him, threatening to break him down completely. But he couldn't allow it, not yet. Naruto's hand hovered over her chest, glowing with the faintest blue chakra. He placed his palm gently over her heart, sending a steady stream of his energy into her. "Hold on," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Just hold on a little longer." And with that, he closed his eyes, his chakra flaring once more, as the battlefield continued to rage around him. The world seemed to stop as he focused on the woman he loved, fighting with everything he had to bring her back. The world seemed to stretch out in a blur as Michaela slowly began to come back to her senses. The heat of the battle, the chaos around her, and the overwhelming sense of dread slowly faded from her mind as her eyes fluttered open. Her body ached, every muscle protesting as she tried to move. A wave of nausea rolled over her, and she winced, her vision hazy. She could hear the sounds of battle, the distant roars of Megatron and the mechanical clashes of Autobots and Decepticons fighting in the streets. But then, her focus sharpened, and she saw Naruto beside her, his face full of concern, but his body radiating with an intensity she'd never seen before. His hand was on her shoulder, and his eyes were filled with worry, but a hint of hope shone through them. "Michaela," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Michaela, stay with me." Her throat was dry, and it took her a moment to gather the strength to speak. I'm alive." Her voice was weak, barely a whisper, but it was enough to catch Naruto's attention. What escaped him was the fact the matrix of leadership exploded the scroll and reformed in her hand. "You're alive," he confirmed, his voice full of relief. He let out a shaky breath, as if he had been holding it in for too long. She glanced around and saw the matrix of leadership on the ground, its faint glow still pulsing. The sound of battle raged around them. But there was something else in her chest now, a fire that refused to be extinguished. Without thinking, she reached for the matrix, her hand trembling as she grasped it. The weight of it seemed to settle into her fingers, and despite the pain and confusion, she knew exactly what she had to do. She slowly rose to her feet, her body unsteady but her resolve solidifying with every second. The Autobots had managed to hold their ground, but they needed Optimus now, more than ever. "Optimus, I have to do this," she whispered to herself. She looked at Naruto, who was still kneeling beside her. His expression was full of hope, but there was a silent understanding in his eyes. "I know. Michaela," he said softly. With that, she made her way toward Optimus, the matrix clutched tightly in her hands. The massive Autobot leader still lay motionless, but she could feel the power of the matrix calling out to him. She knelt by his side and placed the matrix in his chest, the golden glow of its energy filling the air around them. For a moment, nothing happened. The battlefield seemed to fall silent, as though the world itself was holding its breath. But then, slowly, Optimus' optics flickered to life, glowing a brilliant blue. "Michaela," Optimus' deep voice rumbled, still hoarse but strong. You have returned it." A wave of energy pulsed through him, and the matrix glowed brighter, wrapping him in a golden aura. His massive form trembled as he slowly pushed himself to his feet, his strength returning with every passing second. The air around them seemed to hum with the energy of the matrix, and the Autobots rallied around him, their faith in their leader restored. But it wasn't over. The ground shook as Megatron, enraged by Optimus' revival, let out a roar of fury. His optics locked onto the newly awakened Autobot leader, and he surged forward, his cannon primed for a final strike. But before Megatron could get a shot off, Optimus moved, faster than anyone thought possible. He lunged at Megatron with a roar. His sword drawn in an arc of light, and the battle was reignited with renewed ferocity. Michaela stepped back, her heart still racing as she watched Optimus fight. She looked down at the Matrix, now just a faint glow, and a sense of awe washed over her. It was in this moment that she realized what she had done, and the weight of the responsibility she now shared with Optimus. Naruto, ever watchful, stood beside her, his body still glowing with the remnants of his chakra, his eyes never leaving her. His voice was low as he spoke, a note of admiration in his tone. "You did it," he said softly. "You saved him." She gave a tired, but grateful smile. "We did it." But their victory would not be complete until Megatron was defeated once and for all. And with Optimus back in the fight, Michaela knew that it was only a matter of time before the tide turned in their favor. As Optimus stood tall, his optics glowing with the brilliant light of the Matrix, the air around him seemed to hum with the return of hope. The Autobots, emboldened by his revival, began to rally, their morale renewed. The battle seemed to take a turn in their favor as Optimus' power surged through him. But just as the Autobots began to regain their ground, a shadow descended upon them. With a flash of movement, the ground trembled as a figure cloaked in darkness appeared before Optimus, the Fallen. His presence was suffocating, an ancient and malevolent force that even the Matrix could not seem to resist. The moment Optimus' optics locked onto the Fallen, he felt a wave of dread wash over him. "You're too late, Prime," the Fallen's voice rumbled, ancient and cold, filled with a twisted sense of satisfaction. Without warning, he moved faster than anyone could react, striking out with a quick, brutal motion. In one swift motion, the Fallen's hand shot out, seizing the Matrix from Optimus' chest. The light of the Matrix flickered for a brief second before dimming completely, the artifact snatched from the Autobot leader's grasp. Optimus stumbled back, his hand instinctively reaching for the place where the Matrix had once been, but it was too late. No, Optimus muttered in disbelief. Before Optimus could make another move, the Fallen was already in motion. With the Matrix in his possession, he turned and fled, moving faster than a flash, a dark streak across the battlefield. He disappeared into the distance with a mocking laugh, leaving Optimus and the Autobots stunned. "Michaela," Optimus called out, his voice full of urgency, but also a deep sadness. "We have to stop him." But before they could react, the Fallen's voice echoed from the distance. "The Matrix is mine now, and with it, I will end you all." The Autobots began to move to intercept, but Naruto stepped forward, his expression hardening. He had no time to waste, his eyes were set on the pyramid that had once been hidden. The place where the Fallen had undoubtedly planned to take the Matrix. As the chaos of the battlefield continued to rage, a massive shadow appeared in the sky, Jetfire. The enormous Autobot, who had long ago sacrificed his body for the cause, descended from the heavens, his wings outstretched and his engines roaring. His presence was a beacon of hope, a symbol of strength in the face of impending destruction. Landing with a powerful thud, Jetfire's black and red frame radiated power and readiness. The Autobots, even in the midst of the intense battle, took a brief moment to look up at him with respect. The battlefield seemed to quiet just slightly, as though even the Decepticons knew what was coming. Jetfire's voice boomed over the comms, his tone deep and gravelly. "Optimus, I've come to join the Autobots once more, take my spark, and with it your power will go up tenfold." Optimus' optics shifted toward him, a renewed resolve within them. His connection with Jetfire, forged through years of battle and sacrifice, had always been a powerful one. But now, with the Matrix gone and the Fallen threatening to unleash unimaginable destruction, their bond would reach new heights. "Then let us end this," Optimus said, his voice calm yet laced with an intensity that matched the urgency of the moment. "The Fallen must not reach that weapon." Jetfire's large form shifted, and with a mechanical whir, parts of his body began to shift and unfold. His massive frame separated, revealing the transformation that had been engineered for this very moment. Optimus stepped forward, his own body moving into position, his face grim. Without a word, Optimus and Jetfire merged together, forming a colossal, hybrid form, a powerful combination of the two Autobots. The fusion of Optimus and Jetfire was more than just strength, it was history and hope, the ultimate form of Autobots working together to save the world. As the two merged, the landscape seemed to tremble. The ground shook beneath their combined weight. When the transformation was complete, Optimus Prime stood taller and more formidable than ever. His frame was now reinforced, glowing with the power of the Matrix. Jetfire's wings had integrated seamlessly with Optimus' own, and his new form exuded an almost unstoppable energy. But Optimus knew this wasn't enough. The Fallen was an ancient evil, and Megatron's plans were far from over. He had to reach the pyramid and stop them, before it was too late. Without hesitation, Optimus activated his thrusters, taking off into the sky with incredible speed. The powerful jet engines on his back roared to life, pushing him forward. Naruto, standing nearby, his eyes focused on the incoming battle, didn't hesitate either. He had already gathered his energy, his chakra flaring once more as he moved to join Optimus. His mind was set, his heart determined. He wasn't going to let the Fallen win. "I'm with you, Optimus," Naruto shouted, his voice filled with fierce determination. With a burst of chakra, he propelled himself into the sky, matching the speed of Optimus' flight. The two soared through the air, a blur of red, blue, and white, two forces of nature united against the ancient evil that threatened their world. The Autobots below continued to fight the Decepticons, but Optimus and Naruto were focused on one singular goal: stopping the Fallen and reclaiming the Matrix. As they neared the pyramid, a massive blast of energy shot out from its peak. The Fallen's weapon was charging, and time was running out. The intensity of the blast tore through the atmosphere, a clear sign that they were too late to stop it unless they acted quickly. Naruto, we need to act now. Optimus' voice was filled with urgency as they neared the weapon. The pyramid's dark power emanated from the core, and the energy seemed to distort the air itself. Naruto's hands tightened into fists. I'm ready. Let's finish this. With a roar of determination, Optimus slammed into the pyramid's exterior, sending shockwaves through the structure as the energy barrier surrounding it shattered. The Fallen's power surged, but it was not enough to stop Optimus and Naruto. Together, they would take down the Fallen. Together, they would bring an end to Megatron's plans. Together, they would fight for the future. As Optimus and Naruto approached the pyramid, the very air seemed to crackle with energy. The Fallen stood atop the structure, his menacing figure bathed in the eerie glow of the weapon he was about to unleash upon the world. Megatron stood beside him, his optics glowing with malice and hatred, his massive frame towering over the ground. The two of them were the epitome of destruction, but they had underestimated the resolve of the Autobots and Naruto. Naruto, his golden chakra swirling around him like a living aura, couldn't hold back his anger any longer. His eyes burned with determination as he faced the two of them. His chakra surged violently around him, creating an intense, almost blinding light. Let's finish this, Naruto muttered to himself, his voice filled with grit and purpose. Without a moment's hesitation, he propelled himself forward, his body a streak of yellow light. The air around him distorted as his speed increased, and in an instant, he slammed into the Fallen with a force that shook the entire structure. His chakra exploded on impact, knocking the ancient transformer back as the ground trembled beneath them. The Fallen staggered for a moment, his head snapping backward in surprise at the sheer force of the attack. He wasn't expecting this level of power from a human, but it was clear that Naruto was no ordinary opponent. His chakra flared even brighter, and with a roar, he drove his fist into the Fallen's chest, forcing the ancient Decepticon back. But Megatron, quick to react, immediately advanced. Fool, he spat, raising his cannon arm to fire, but Optimus Prime was quicker. With a flash of blue and red, Optimus launched himself into the fray, slamming into Megatron just as he fired his weapon, sending the blast off into the sky. The two titans collided with a deafening crash, each one struggling for dominance. Optimus, Naruto shouted, seeing the chance. But Optimus didn't need to be told twice. With a powerful surge of energy, he thrust his massive sword into Megatron's chest, sending the Decepticon flying back with an explosive blast. Optimus wasted no time. He turned his attention to the looming Star Destroyer weapon, which had started charging again, its core glowing with deadly energy. That weapon must be destroyed, now, Optimus commanded. With a mighty leap, he soared toward the weapon, his weapons locked and loaded. Naruto turned his attention back to the Fallen, who was recovering from his earlier attack. He could feel the dark energy emanating from the Decepticon, a suffocating force that sought to crush him. But Naruto wasn't going to let up. You think you can defeat me, boy? The Fallen growled, his voice ancient and filled with malice. You are nothing more than a blip in time, a fleeting moment in my endless war. Naruto grinned, his eyes burning with the light of his golden chakra. I don't care how long you've been around, he said, his voice unwavering. You're not gonna destroy this world, not while I'm here. The Fallen let out a deep, guttural laugh. Your resolve is admirable, but it won't save you. I have seen the end of many like you. Naruto's grin widened, and with a fierce yell, he pushed himself forward. His chakra flared even brighter, coating his body with a golden sheen as he charged at the Fallen once again. Faster than ever before. His fists crashed into the Fallen's armored chest, sending shockwaves through the air. Each punch was fueled by the will to protect, each strike another step closer to victory. The Fallen staggered back, clearly taken aback by Naruto's relentless assault. But he wasn't finished. His hand glowed with dark energy as he shot a bolt of raw power straight toward Naruto, but Naruto wasn't done yet. He moved with the speed of a lightning bolt, dodging the blast and landing a devastating kick to the Fallen's side, sending him crashing into the side of the pyramid. "You're too slow," Naruto taunted, breathing heavily but standing firm. "I've got way more in me than you think." Meanwhile, Optimus Prime had reached the Star Destroyer weapon, and with a single strike from his massive blade, he shattered the core, sending a shockwave of energy through the structure. The weapon faltered, its energy surging out of control before it exploded in a violent burst, sending debris flying into the air. The tide of the battle had begun to shift. But the Fallen wasn't finished yet. With a growl, he pulled himself up, his dark eyes burning with rage. "You think you've won, little human," he hissed. "This world will burn, no matter what you do." Naruto's chakra flared again, more intense than ever. "I'm not done yet," he said with a fire in his voice. "Neither are you." With a final roar, Naruto launched himself at the Fallen, his chakra wrapped tightly around his fists. It was time to finish this. The battle had only just begun, but Naruto had already decided that no matter what, he was going to protect the world, no matter the cost. Naruto's chakra burned brighter than ever, his yellow aura blazing around him as he pushed forward, fists clenched and ready to end this battle once and for all. The Fallen, bloodied and battered from Naruto's relentless assault, looked up with a twisted grin. "You truly believe you can stop me?" The Fallen's voice rumbled with ancient fury. His body glowed with a dark energy, a malevolent power that resonated through the air like a wave of pressure. Naruto's eyes narrowed, determination setting in. "I don't just believe it, I know it." The Fallen raised one arm, his fingers crackling with destructive power, and thrust them forward, sending out a barrage of energy bolts aimed directly at Naruto. But Naruto was faster, his body flickering through the air like a blur of golden light, each bolt missing him by inches. The ground shook beneath their feet as Naruto dodged, weaving through the storm of energy. With a burst of speed, he appeared directly in front of the Fallen and drove his fist into the Decepticon's stomach. The impact created a shockwave that sent the Fallen staggering back, his feet skidding on the cracked earth beneath him. The Fallen let out a hiss of pain, his glowing eyes flaring with more power as he prepared to retaliate. "You are an annoyance," the Fallen roared, raising both hands above his head, summoning a massive orb of dark energy that crackled with destructive force. The orb expanded, growing larger by the second as the air itself began to warp from the sheer intensity of the power it contained. Naruto's heart raced as he saw the massive weapon forming. He couldn't let the Fallen unleash that kind of destruction, not now. He clenched his fists and planted his feet, his chakra flaring around him like a barrier of golden light. "If you want to destroy the world," Naruto shouted, "you're going to have to get through me first." With a mighty roar, Naruto charged at the Fallen, his chakra exploding outward, fueling his speed and strength. He collided with the Fallen's massive form just as the dark orb reached its full size, sending a massive shockwave rippling through the air. Naruto punched with everything he had, his chakra-infused fist slamming into the Fallen's chest with the force of 1,000 strikes. The Fallen staggered back, momentarily stunned by the overwhelming force. But the orb of energy was still in the air, ready to fire. "Not today," Naruto yelled, gritting his teeth. His chakra flared even brighter, and with a mighty leap, he surged forward and grabbed the Fallen's wrist, preventing him from launching the orb. The Fallen struggled, trying to break free, but Naruto's grip was unyielding. "You're not getting away with this." The Fallen snarled, his eyes burning with rage as he twisted his body to try and break Naruto's hold. "You will regret this," human. But Naruto wasn't backing down. I don't regret anything, not when I'm fighting to protect the people I care about. With one final push, Naruto channeled all of his chakra into his fist and slammed it into the fallen's chest. The explosion of energy knocked the fallen off balance, causing him to stagger backward, his hand fumbling to keep the orb under control. "You're finished," Naruto said, panting heavily as his chakra continued to burn around him like a raging fire. But before Naruto could press the advantage, Megatron's voice echoed through the battlefield. "You're a fool, Naruto," Megatron growled, charging toward him with all the fury of a wild animal. "You think you can stop the fallen? I will destroy you first." Naruto's eyes widened as Megatron approached, but before he could react, Optimus Prime appeared in front of him, blocking Megatron's path with his massive frame. "Not today, Megatron," Optimus said, his voice firm as he raised his bladed axe, preparing for the next battle. "This ends now." Naruto nodded, his golden chakra still swirling around him as he focused on the fallen once again. He had to finish what he started. The fallen, recovering from the hit, sneered at Optimus and Naruto. "You are all foolish to think you can defeat me. The war is not over." But Naruto wasn't backing down. With a final yell, he gathered his chakra into a single concentrated blast, unleashing a massive explosion of golden light that slammed into the fallen. The Decepticon staggered back, unable to withstand the power of the blast, and with a final roar, he crumbled to the ground, defeated. Naruto stood, his breathing heavy but his eyes fierce. He turned to Optimus. "It's over, we won." But Megatron wasn't finished. With a roar of fury, he lunged at them once again, weapons blazing, ready to finish the battle once and for all. This fight was far from over. Optimus Prime stood tall, his massive form imposing against the backdrop of the fiery battlefield. He knew this was it, the final confrontation. As Megatron charged toward them, his weapons blazing, Optimus raised his bladed axe, ready to defend. "Naruto," Optimus shouted, his voice booming. "Deal with the fallen, I'll handle Megatron." Naruto, still surrounded by his golden chakra aura, nodded sharply. "Got it, Optimus." He turned to face the fallen, his eyes steely with determination. "You're not escaping this time." With a final burst of energy, Naruto launched himself forward, his fists crackling with the immense power of his chakra. The fallen, reeling from Naruto's earlier blows, barely had time to react before Naruto slammed into him with full force. The fallen, struggling to regain his balance, raised his hands in a futile attempt to block Naruto's attacks. Dark energy pulsed around him, but it was no match for Naruto's fiery golden chakra. "You're nothing but a relic of a forgotten war," Naruto growled as he delivered another punishing punch, sending the fallen sprawling backward. With every strike, the fallen's form began to deteriorate, cracks appearing along his dark armor. He snarled, raising his hand to summon a final, desperate blast of dark energy, but Naruto was faster. With one last charge, Naruto collided with the fallen, sending a massive shockwave of chakra that obliterated the Decepticon's defenses. The fallen's body shattered into pieces, his dark energy fading away with a final, defeated scream. The battlefield grew silent. Naruto stood over the fallen Decepticon, panting heavily, his chakra flaring one last time before slowly settling. He turned toward Optimus, his voice hoarse but triumphant. "One shall stand, one shall fall." Optimus nodded, satisfied with the result. But Megatron wasn't about to let them off so easily. The Decepticon leader stood a few yards away, watching the defeated form of the fallen with a mixture of sadness and rage. "Foolish Autobots," Megatron muttered, his fists clenched. "You have won, but the war is far from over." Starscream, who had been observing from a distance, finally spoke up. His voice was laced with bitterness but also a sense of realization. Megatron, you can mourn later. This battle is lost. We must retreat before we're destroyed. Sometimes, the coward's way is the only way. Megatron looked at Starscream, his eyes cold with the weight of defeat. His shoulders slumped as he realized the truth. The battle had ended, and the fallen was gone. There would be no victory today. With a final, pained glance at the battlefield, Megatron turned away. Starscream, eager to escape the growing onslaught from the Autobots, stepped forward and pulled Megatron away. We'll retreat for now, but this war isn't over. Megatron. We'll return, stronger than before. Reluctantly, Megatron allowed himself to be led away by Starscream, his form retreating into the shadows as they fled the battlefield. Optimus watched the retreating figures of the Decepticons, his stance firm but weary. This war may never truly end, he murmured, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. Naruto approached Optimus, a faint smile on his face despite the exhaustion that weighed heavily on him. For now, the war's over. We've won today. Optimus gave a small nod, acknowledging Naruto's words. For now, yes, but we will remain vigilant. The Decepticons will never stop trying to destroy what we've built. Naruto's golden chakra slowly began to fade. His energy spent. He looked out over the battlefield, the wreckage of the fallen's forces scattered around them, and the Autobots still standing strong. It's over for today, Naruto said with a small sigh, his expression determined but calm. But we'll be ready for whatever comes next. With the Decepticons retreating, the Autobots began to regroup. The battlefield, once filled with chaos, now lay still. Optimus Prime turned to face the Autobots and their allies, his voice firm and commanding. Today, we have won a hard-fought battle, Optimus said. But the war is far from over. We must stay strong, united, and prepare for the challenges ahead. Naruto nodded to himself, knowing the fight wasn't over. But for now, they had achieved something monumental. The fallen was gone, and the Decepticons had been forced to retreat. The battle had been won. But the war, that was still to come. That's it for today. I hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe, and comment ideas if you can, and maybe you could share this with your friends, because you never know, they might like what ifs too. So without further ado, all KAGE, out.